Put in your PSD.
Good job at 75% of the things that I said that I didn't understand. Yeah, I love it. He doesn't say much, but he's a brilliant guy.
Thanks everybody for coming. I'm Meg, Amanda, and we're excited that you guys all brave the rain to come here. There's pizza and beer and wine and soda and water on the other side of the fridge. Courtesy of the monster. Also, if you need the bathroom, there's a bathroom on this floor, just in the back of the room by the kitchen. There's also one like directly below it on the first floor.
Let's welcome Aria today. She's going to be talking about Npm Scripts and automation.
Woo!
One last thing, we're going to do announcements after the talk. So if anybody has an announcement, tonight. Thanks, Aria.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'll turn this on the mic.
Is it being recorded?
I believe so. We have a camera right there. Oh, will the camera pick up the voice if I don't use the mic?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yep.
That'll work. Yeah, it's always a bummer when you record it. Oops, looks like. There we go. Okay, so I'm talking about Npm Scripts. My name's Aria, and I actually work for Npm, so don't treat me as the end-all authority on this. Because what I do day to day is I work on the web team at Npm. I'm not the person who designed the Npm tool you use. I'm not the person who designed the registry. But I do use it day in, day out, every day. I've got some questions for you. How many of you use Npm? Okay, that's about what I expected. You don't get to not use it these days. If you use JavaScript, you have to use Npm these days. How many of you are using Npm Scripts? I have an idea what they are. Okay. This could be some new territory. How many of you use Windows? Okay, we've got a few. I'm sorry. And improvement on Windows support improvements. So hopefully Windows support will be better soon. How many of you have written a small bash script? Okay, nice. How many of you use any of these tools? All right, that's a fair number. One thing I want to tell you is Npm Scripts can use these tools. You don't have to give things up to use them. There's a lot of religious argument right now about which tool you should use. Turns out you can use all of them. One of the things that I really like about Npm Scripts is that it lets you have a common interface to all of the tools you choose to use. It's just a single place to put the entry points that you can then do whatever you need to do with your process automation. How many of you have used CodeKit or some other file launcher? All right. Did any of these feel like they were taking over your project?
Yes.
One of the biggest problems that people complain about with build tools is that they're all or nothing. You can't mix and match, or that they are like dominating your project. Especially see this with stuff like Babel for React, where every bit of JavaScript has to go through it. But these are things that we can actually work on. So we're going to talk about how to build our own toolkit. Now the first secret is that Npm itself doesn't do anything really interesting. installs stuff and it runs it. That's really all NPM does. It's a really complicated way to install things sometimes. If you've ever looked at the source code of NPM, it's a crafty horror show of things that must be I'm really glad the team has to maintain it. NPM scripts aren't a goal. Like nobody here in their day job actually has a title. The person who makes NPM scripts run, like that's not the goal of anybody's day. The real power is that they're simple, so that you can get on with the rest of your day. One of the things that people try to do is that they try to wedge every tool that they've ever heard of into the build chain. Having worked on code base where somebody else did it. Okay, there's a few head nodding there. One of the things that I like to do is tear things out. When I get into a new job, the first thing I do is tear out some major piece of the system that isn't needed. It's the best feeling in the world. Now the real power of NPM scripts is that you're already using NPM. You have to use it for NPM install. So you're already going to be using it. So these are the 3 commands that I run day to day. NPM install, make sure that I've got everything I need. NPM run, whatever the thing happens to be in my build scripts. In the NPM website, it's the dev server, which is the service, and compiles the CSS, and if I make changes, restarts things. And then NPM test run my tests. Which you could actually just say NPM run test, it's the same thing, it's just a shorthand for it. How many of you have used NPM with -g flag? Whoever led you to do that led you astray a little bit. One of the things that causes is that every program you use starts having to use the same tools and the same versions. And so when you come back to that project 2 years down the line, chances are you're going to have to go chase down these old dependencies and figure out which ones you need to NPM install first. If you actually avoid using the -g, NPM install everything into the app, and it will stay there. So when you come back to it 2 years later, you can actually run the copy that was installed into the app. And if you run it with an NPM run script, that's all kind of invisible. It just uses those copies. If not, then you can run them by hand. There's a magic path. Inside the node modules, there's a .bin folder, and inside there is all those tools. So you can actually run those tools without having them globally installed. Each app can have the versions it needs. This one needs ES and 0.8 because that's the update. This one needs the older version of Mocha because it was written 2.5 years ago. Turns out it's using Express 1, I'm sorry. But there's a good chance that app will actually still run 2 years later when it's in maintenance mode. The downside of doing this is that every app gets its own copy. So that's more disk space and a little bit more time to install. But the upside is that everything's isolated from itself. One app is not going to change something that will require you to change something that breaks another app. So you can keep developing and everybody stays in its own little box. Like Docker Light. Really, really light. The honest is Docker. There's another thing. There are 250,000, actually closer to 300,000 packages in the registry right now. That is a lot of tools that you can use to build on. There are little tiny tools for doing the most mundane tasks. How many of you have heard of LeftPad? Sorry about that. We got it restored to the registry and everything's working again. I was actually out for about 2.5 hours, but we're really doing something from that part. And we changed the policy so that won't happen again. But there's tools from all of the little mundane tasks up to really, really big stuff. I don't know how many of you have looked at how big Babel is. It's this gigantic sprawling compiler. Google closure tools and stuff in there in places, and they're a big chunk. There's all kinds of stuff wedged up there in the registry. You can use it as part of your build tools. This is the actual toolkit. You can build your own, and what you need is then you can build it and contribute. How many of you have actually written something and published it on the registry? Yay! Yay! There's a few of you. It's actually really easy. It can be as simple as npm init, fill out a couple of fields, add a couple of files, commit them to Git, and then npm publish, and we'll put it up on the registry for everybody else to use. Just choose a license. So everybody's okay using this. And it's okay if they're even tiny trivial stuff or just a configuration of other things. Like I use these 3 things in this sequence together. You can make a module that does that, and that's just your toolkit. you can publish it, and if somebody else finds it useful, they can use it as well. So there's three things that a build system really needs to have. Repeatability, reliability, and you want to reduce redundancy. Not every build system is very good at this out of the box. Repeatability means that when you run the same files in place, the same inputs, you can run it, you should get the same output. This is really important so that you can actually communicate more effectively, say, check out your Git, run this command, and you'll be in a good spot. And even better, if they are convergent, if it doesn't matter how it starts, and it will report the final point. If you go screw something up and you rerun commands and it will move it back to where it should be, that's an A+ system. It's really reliable. Reliability means it works every time. How many of you had the build fail and then when you rerun the test, it works? That's something to squash right away because that's one of the biggest sources of lost developer time. Chasing down build failures, and it makes you not trust your tests, it makes you not trust your build system. And so you get a lot of people making it run around the tools instead of using build automation. And the only thing more fragile than build automation that's intermittent is people. People make lots of mistakes, especially when they're trying to finish that project. Just trying to get something in. And then reducing redundancy. It's good for a couple of reasons. There's that thing where if you want to change a value, say all of the margins on your site are 10 pixels. And the designer comes along and says, you know, with these big displays these days, we want a little bit more white space. We've got the room to get this design a little bit breathe. We want to update all of the margins on the entire site. Let's make it 15 pixels. That's a giant piece of brute force work if you're working in CSS, plain CSS. If you find every place with 10 pixels, it isn't separate them out. So you find all of those pieces and you replace them with 15. And then this design says, no, that didn't actually work. We have to go back to 10. That's another piece of work. If your build system centralizes that kind of information, take the 10 pixels, put it in a variable somewhere, use Sass or Less or Stylus, any of the CSS preprocessors. If you put that in a variable somewhere, you only have to change it one place. And everything else knows that instead of having a 10 pixel margin, it's having a correct margin. It's the right margin. And if you change what the right is, that updates everywhere. That's the kind of reducing redundancy that the build system really does well. You want to not repeat a concept. People talk about dry principles that don't repeat yourself. What that really means is don't repeat concepts. Like there should be one canonical source of truth for that information. You don't want to be digging through 100 files trying to change something. You want to know where the copy of that thing is, which one is the right one. So I want to talk a little bit about modularity too. How many of you work on a really big app? All right. How many of you wish that was a few smaller pieces so you didn't have to think about the whole thing? All right. You're my kind of person. It turns out that modularizing makes this really hard, especially when you have a monolithic system which is built all at once. People tack things on in all the different places wherever they fit. You want to be able to separate those pieces out. And some of these tools actually help, finally. Modularizing CSS is particularly painful because order matters, and which piece requires which other pieces to work matter. It will tell you when it fails, it just doesn't work. All of those things are things that fight modularity, but people are actually starting to build tools that you can use, starting in Npm Scripts or from Go front, and you can actually build your own toolkit there. So these are some of the props you're going to. All of the pieces that are interdependent, change one things, breaks, flat namespace. All of the CSS selectors live in the same namespace. So if you define something called heading, which would seem perfectly clear for the project you're working on, turns out when someone on the page uses the same CSS, there's another thing called heading, and that doesn't look right. That's a namespace collision. And you're not able to track what's used. Tracking down some of the selectors is really, really hard. People are starting to build tools that will analyze sites. I saw an interesting one the other day that actually runs JavaScript client-side and looks at all the selectors that are used and then reports them. And so you know if a selector hasn't been used in 6 months, put that out. It's kind of a long process and brute force, but you can use your users' browsers to track what you're using. Npm Scripts won't solve these things. There's tools to do it, but that's still the work of making things modular, trying to figure out what depends on what. And it's important for code management because that way when you change something, you know what it's supporting. But there's a couple of tricks for namespaces. This is a human problem. Some new names are more unique than others. If you say, I'm looking for Sarah, you walk with a small group, you know which person Sarah is. But if I'm talking to 5 people and say, hey Sarah, there's 6 people who say what? And so that's a namespace collision. The same name used to refer to multiple things. We can be more specific. Hey, is Sarah Sudahan here? That's a single person, probably. In the web dev space, that's a single person, but there may be another Sarah Sudahan. Born tomorrow, grows up to be a web dev, now we have a namespace collision. And so there's other ways to manage namespaces. Sometimes you generate an ID. That's how social security numbers work. Everybody gets a unique one, and it's not particularly meaningful, but at least it's unique. You hope. Turns out it's meaningful systems sometimes. You can solve namespacing problems by ignoring it. Just be careful. Actually, at NPM, we use a system called Dr. Frankenstein that's like this. Include a whole pile of CSS from a whole bunch of different modules. And it puts them in the right order, so we have their interdependence figured out. But we don't actually have any way to track for collisions. We just know that if we install both versions of the header module, everything explodes. We don't do that. It doesn't scale super high. That's something we'll probably build tools to detect in the future. Or you can make namespace collisions error. I made a bunch of little packages when I was working on PayPal. And each module goes in its place and installed with NPM, and it all goes in that node modules folder. And then I wanted to go use those things on the client side. And there's lots of tools out there. Our can do the same thing right now with the same package, a different way. And hopefully you get the same stuff, and you use it on the client side, and then you use that version for the client side, you use the NPM version for the others, and it's kind of complicated. What I wanted to do was take the copy from NPM and use it on the client side. So I built this tool called Copy Browser Modules, which went through everything in the node modules folder and said, all of these things are aimed at the browser, we're just going to put them over here. So we can just, it just puts them in the document groups so that I can refer to them as static files. I can do further builds from there, but what it did was, if something requested 2 different versions of something, it would just yell and say, sorry, I can't do that, that name's already used. So that was an approach to breaking down the namespace, and at least making it an error so we know when the programmer screws up. With 1,000 dependencies, it'll happen. And then there's tricks like remapping. I don't know if you've seen CSS toolkits that do this. It actually generates a unique ID, takes the package name, just hashes it into a number, and puts it in front of all the selectors. And then in your HTML, you do the same thing. And then you have a guaranteed unique name. It's not very meaningful because it does like the social security number thing where it just has a number, and then a meaningful name after it. But that way, single rules can refer to single things. So it's a great way to modularize code. And now, with tools like React, you can actually have it generate those classes for you. So in your React code, you say class equals blah blah. When it actually emits the HTML, it will say class equals this number underscore blah blah. So that then you can actually use modular CSS, and you won't have any namespace conflicts. So some of these tools are really, really cool. So the one we use in NPM is this cool tool called Dr. Frankenstein. All of our CSS is in NPM modules. So they're stored on the registry. They're called PUI-CSS because this was invented by some folks at Pivotal Labs. And so we have all of these PUI CSS modules in our node modules folder. And then we run Dr. Frankenstein, and it just collects all of those things, puts them in the right order, concatenates them, and says, here's your style sheet. So when we want to build a new marketing page, for example, we can say, okay, I need a NPM header, a big banner across the top, and we're going to need big panes that make up our new front page, and we're going to need our typography components. We can install those 3 things. In this case, this is the forms, we're going to install our forms component. And then we can have an NPM repo that says, we are building this thing, it's called the marketing site from 2015 for demo day. And then inside of that, we'll have some HTML, some CSS, for the project-specific stuff. And then a bunch of dependencies saying, these are the modules we use, all the standard ones that we use every day. And so it just lists them out, and Dr. Frankenstein assembles our style sheet for us. Interdependency is the tricky one. You actually have to know what your CSS requires. In this case, our forms module requires a typography if you don't have it. So we did find that have an annotated say, okay, the NPM package JSON for the forms module. We have a dependency of the typology function it's required to run. Analyzing things is still kind of a new art, figuring out what depends on what. We don't have good ways of CSS in particular, not to do that. JavaScript's a little bit better because NPM's been around for 5 years now, and so we have better names for things. They have, the namespace in the NPM registries. Only one person can claim a name. We have our modularity a little bit better. We've got tools like Webpack and Browserify that will pull things from those modules and build a bundle. But things like CSS is still a little bit Wild West there because it's got so much surface area there that touches everything else. And then there's simplifying. This is a bit of a magic script. But it's not actually that thing named, or it's not misnamed. The pre-published step in NPM is this magic one. When you download project.git, you clone it. Just clone your website and say npm install. It installs all the dependencies and then it runs pre-publish. It's a terrible thing. I wish NPM still worked on a spec to rename that script without breaking everything. But what you can do then is make it so that a single command gets the thing ready to run. We've got it, you download the NPM website, type npm install, and all the dependencies are loaded. It compiles all the CSS, it copies the assets into the static folder, it builds the, it optimizes all the SVG files, all the building you need just off of the npm install command. So then we just type npm start and the whole thing's running. It's one of the simplest workflows there. And almost every project at NPM follows those two steps. So if somebody's trying to build a piece of the registry, they can call it from Git and type npm install and then npm start, and that component fires up. It's a really nice, simple way that we can just say everything works this way. And we use it with a pre-published script in there. The reason it's called pre-published is that if you're making a module for something else to use, you generally want to package up all of those things and do all that build time yourself. Instead of having to have them installed, you can compile a toolkit and all the pieces that it needs to run. So when you type npm publish, it'll also run your publish script, get all those assets built, and then publish your module. So for a library, it makes sense to call it publish, pre-publish, but this is actually pre-install. We'll run the git install approve app. So I kind of covered a lot here already. How many of you have actually looked inside of a package JSON file? Okay, good. So you've seen the name field, that one's required. Version, that one, if you're going to publish it, that one's required. Description, strongly encouraged, especially as a note to yourself 6 months later. What is this module and what does it do? Having it just be the name, Finger Express. Not a great name. In fact, at 6 letters, wonder what the finger is. And then NPM will yell at you if you don't have a readme file. Just trying to encourage a little bit more collaboration mindset. At least document what this thing is and how to use it just a little bit, even if it's a couple paragraphs, make a readme file. But then the rest of the package JSON can include all kinds of other fields. But the important ones are dependencies. What does my app need? What does it need to run? Dev dependencies. What does it need to work on it? And then scripts. What does this thing need to do to get running? You can actually put an npm script, the name on the left-hand side of the column there, can be anything you want. And if you type npm run that thing, it'll find it in the package JSON and run that script. And as you can see here, those scripts can be other npm scripts. So in this case, pre-publish, just to remind yourself what that is. It runs my fancy build. So that's what it actually does. Pre-publish, like I said, is a terrible name, so it has to be named that to get that magic behavior. You can actually make a script for just about anything, and you can name it what it is. In the NPM website project, we've got test code integration, our integration test, test code backend for the backend tests, test code front end, which runs our front end JavaScript test Phantom, and then we have our test command, which runs all three to make sure that they'll work. When you're making a build system, though, you really want to keep it simple. It's really tempting to build all of the tools. Use all of Gulp, every Gulp plugin you can find. How many of you have run into trying to install ImageMint? Was that hell?
Yeah, you need to install it like something else.
Yeah,
Inside,
you have to install a bunch of other packages outside. Your global installs, they're not in NPM. So you install the Npm and hopefully compile it. Whatever version of Windows. If you have a compiler, let me tell you something, the compiler on Windows is a royal pain. And it uses image magic, which, as I discovered this week, has a couple of major security holes in it. And it's a whole world of hurt. So one of the first things you actually really want to do is keep it simple. The simplest build script you can do is taking a file and transforming it into another file. This is JSX, that's JS. So we take our JSX file and we convert it to JS. We only have one because this is a tiny module. That's the simplest possible thing we can do. This is a PNG, we want to make a JPEG version. This is a fancy compressed image like a WebP. So we're going to make a JPEG fallback for it. Those are simple transformations. The next one is a directory to a file transform. You can do things like, starting with this file, take everything in that directory that it needs and pack it all together and dump it out as a single file. That's what Webpack does to some degree. That's what Browserify does. Browserify is a little bit simpler. You say, I want to start with this app.js file, but it packs up, follows all the required modules or all of the input statements and goes back and finds all of the things it uses, packs them up together, and dumps it out as a single file. That's the next most simple thing you can do. And then a directory to a directory transform. You can say, okay, take all of these files and make an equivalent one over here. So you take all of these files and all of those. The reason that's more complicated then is that if you're trying to rebuild something, it generally has to redo all of it. Some of the fancy build systems will actually say, well, only this one changed, we only need to do that one. But most of the JavaScript build systems have given up on dependency tracking, because computers are fast enough to just rebuild everything. Sometimes. Some of our builds get a little bit long. One of our Npm style guide in particular takes a minute and a half now. So we're doing so much processing, it's something I want to cut down on, and I want to simplify it. And then the most complicated is the many file transforms. Where you say, okay, I'm taking this CSS file and this image and this font file, and we're spitting out this other font file and this other CSS, and we're inlining the images, but there's a fallback. And there's another font right there. There's no one-to-one correspondence there. Even dependency tracking is really hard to update the font file, and it really does have to rebuild everything because figuring out what's related to what is difficult. You end up with more cases where your build rules collide. Say this CSS, these CSS files should be with these CSS files, or these SAS files should be with these CSS files. But also this thing is also spitting out CSS files, and now they have to be joined together, and you end up with a really long, complicated build pipeline if you're starting to do things like that. So try to design things for the simplest possible way you can. Stay toward the top of that scale if you can, and only jump down if you have to. Because a file-to-file transform, if you need to do a file-to-file, do a pipeline, it's really easy. Try to do a pipeline on the last one and add another step. Try yourself mad. And that's where a lot of the goal tasks in particular ended up, is that people will take these really complicated transformations and say, okay, that's good. Now just tack on another one to another really complicated set of transformations from there to the next thing. And because we're usually dumping all into a single build directory, they step on each other and all kind of build failures. Sometimes even race conditions where sometimes it breaks if it runs in the wrong order, and sometimes it works if it runs in the right order. And so by simplifying that, it's easier. Npm Scripts in particular force you to be simple. So you can have a gold file that is 10K. Uses all of the modules. If you do that in Npm Scripts, that is a really, really big package JSON, and it all has to be wedged into JSON too. Really long lines, and they're terrible head, so people don't do it so much. So the restriction is kind of a good thing. You can actually replace CodeKit in Npm Script. There's a tool called Watch. You can install all that. And here's a script there. What that does is any CSS file, when it changes, it'll run the build. That's all. So as I'm editing, it does that. You can actually extend that into a whole bunch of different things. You can actually run several watches at once, so that your JS watcher runs, change a JavaScript file, your CSS watcher changes when you change your CSS file. You can set them up that runs the SAS compiler to make your CSS when you change your SAS file. You have to watch out for the quoting though. You have to use the single quotes inside the double quotes, or do the escape from the backslashes. So JSON's a little bit strict about quoting compared to other formats, so be a little bit careful there. Just remember that if you make something complicated, it loads, and you have to debug it, that's actually lost time. The point of the automation is to save time. Save time or save errors. And so you actually want to keep it simple and really, really work with that. Like I said, you can still use Chrome. Chrome's a goal. I'm going to Freudian slip there, but I still think that much. It's a great start, but we've built some better build tools since then. Now your Npm script run a Gulp script. There are a lot of really good Gulp modules out there, and so you can have a simple Gulp file that is called by an Npm script. Do it, use it if necessary. I actually use a couple of Gulp modules for a couple of our build steps because they are good at taking everything in this directory and converting it to that format of the directory. So I actually use that as Npm, although I don't actually call it with Gulp, I just call it directly with the script and use the Gulp-fs module and all the others. And the reason I hide it behind NPM is that I can tell my coworkers, just run NPM install, and the package will do it right. So we have a really low cognitive overhead there. It means that we make new modules like 10 times a week at NPM. Like, seriously, I get GitHub notifications or somebody made a new thing, like all the time. Actually, in particular, is super busy this week. She's made like 30 documentation repositories for little pieces. And there are going to be modules. She'll probably have this module in the registry. And when she goes to assemble the whole big documentation folder that she's working on, it'll just be a package JSON that says, well, you're going to install all of these things. There won't be much stuff in the actual core document file. It will all just be references out to packages that are built and tested, and she can refer to just these little pieces and hand them to somebody. She can open some up to collaboration, and she can keep other parts locked down, where she wants to control the content carefully. By breaking things up in lots of little modules like that, she's moved a lot. She's lowered the total complexity by isolating things. So this is another script that I use quite a lot. Lotify.js. It's a package you can install. And because I've installed it in my module, it's in my modules.git folder. And inside of that, because that's the path in the NPM script, I can just use it. So right here, this is a Unixy thing. Those of you who don't know, Bash will do very much. That just reads my app.js file and spits out an unified copy. Lotify.js is a great, simple tool. Reads a thing, writes a thing. And it will abort with an error saying you can't parse it if it's not a file to read. That's my entire unification stack for the NPM website. Turns out that's all you need for most things, because after you build an entire bundle of your entire app, you're going to have one file to load anyway. So making a unified copy is really, really easy. You can add another thing to that build. So if that worked, that double ampersand sign, we're going to do the same thing with our CSS. There's a tool called CSS min, and so I run it the same way. It has a nice predictable file name. There's no hashing or anything complicated going on. I'm not editing HTML files to change the links to a new file. You can actually break caches just by adding a question mark and a number at the end. So you have a very simple way. When was this built? Okay, put question mark in the build time on the end of all our assets. So whenever we update an asset, it gets a new hash or a new URL and it breaks it down to cache. Rather than the client's guaranteed to get a new copy instead of the old copy. It's nice and simple, a lot simpler than some of the other tools where Rails asset pipeline where it tries to edit things in and do all kinds of complicated transformations. There's a bunch of those things. Just as a side note, measuring your unification, turns out that sometimes gzip is just as good. So if you have gzip turned on your server, you may not need to minify. It makes debugging way easier if you don't minify. So that's really all I have here. There's a lot of pieces. There's also another tool that you can use called Npm Run All, which actually is really useful for Windows because Windows doesn't have as much. You can't do as much if you want to stay friendly to Windows in the Npm scripts because it's actually running Bash under the hood on Unix systems. But on Windows, it's running the cmd.exe file, which doesn't have such a fancy scripting language. So making using double ampersand to run multiple commands works, but nothing more complicated than that. You can't use multiple things. But Npm Run All lets you say, I want to run all of these things in parallel. So if you've got 5 watchers, one for JavaScript files, one for SAS files, one for less files, one for images that you're going to minify, all of those things can be run by Npm Run All in parallel. And that works even on Windows, which is great. It also makes the package JSON read a lot more smoothly. Just say, npm run all, and the list of tasks is going to run. Npm run all parallel, and then the list of tasks is going to run. Rather than having these long, complicated things with redirection and ampersands, you break your script up into little named pieces. And that makes debugging a whole lot easier because everything is just little pieces and you can see which one broke. The biggest thing I'm trying to draw in a build chain to make it not break, and when it breaks, make it really obvious what broke so that we get back to the run as soon as we can. Anyway, thank you. Good night. Talk to me. I'm going to sit over there with my laptop a little bit and I have to show off pieces like the drop code from websites I've worked on with different build scripts or talk about things too. So come find me.
Thank you.
So we're going to have announcements now. If anyone is hiring or if anyone wants to get hired, you can come up here. Dockyard, which is a consultancy down the street that sponsors this event, is hiring for senior CSS devs. I also want to talk about the meetup that is going to happen next week. We have Aria Stewart. Next month, I didn't mean next month. Hope it's not next week. Yeah. I don't have time. Next month, speaking about
HTML secrets with some CSS. I haven't decided on the specific.
yeah, and handing it over to Meg.
Thanks. I just wanted to say that the Monsters looking for experienced developers, front-end designers, also who have years of experience for development. So contact me if fit that position, or if you just want to hang out. Anyone else?
What do you guys, like, what's the?
I'm sorry, yeah. So we're a design and development shop. We do web applications. Some of our work is augmenting existing software teams and some of it is just like completely greenfield projects. So we do lots of stuff. Thanks. Anyone else?
Okay.
Okay.
We're gonna hang out around here for a little while. Pretty much a long while, I think. So feel free to drink the drinks and eat the food.
Good. Yeah, long time no see. We thought 1 p.m. thing, or no thing. Yeah. Sweet. What was it again?